Hi everyone, welcome to what I'm hoping is the first in a series of astrophotography editing videos. I'm Matt, I'm part of the Sydney Astrophotographers group, and recently we went out to the blast furnace at Lithgow and shot a couple of images. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through my editing process for this image here. I captured this from within the blast furnace on that night. I'm going to walk you through how I used Adobe Camera Raw and Photoshop to turn the RAW file into this photo here. If you want to follow along, I have uploaded the RAW file. The link will be in the description. First thing we're going to do, open this in Camera Raw. As you can see, it's not quite as straight or as square as the finished product. So if we head up over here to our transform tool, what this allows us to do is it allows us to draw some straight lines on the image. I'm just using these marks here in the walls. Now if we draw a couple of these in, whoops, make sure you draw them in straight. After we draw these in, you'll see that the image will become significantly straighter. There we go. Compare that to what we had originally. That is much better. Now I've got some presets on here. You'll want to go through and set sharpening, noise, have a look at it, figure out how you want to set that. Helps if you zoom all the way in, you can see the noise there and adjust these levels, but I use these default values. If we just go back here, what we'll do now is we'll just set some basic white balance here. So about 4400 for the sky. You can see that we've got this really quite hideous green tint on the walls there, so we'll just push our tint up a little bit here just to take as much of that out as we can. That seems pretty good. And because we've got these clipping warnings, it's all very bright, we'll pull our highlights right down and just push our exposure up just a touch, a little bit less than that. Usually I like cropping afterwards, but in this case we can crop beforehand, get that in there. Because we've used the transform tool on all of these, it'll already be level, so we won't need to worry too much about getting out our leveling tool. Once we've got that all nicely framed, like that, we can go ahead and open our image, and that'll load it straight up here into Photoshop. So now that we've got it loaded into Photoshop, what we want to do is we want to create two groups. Group 1, we'll call it Sky, and Group 2, we'll call it Walls. What we're going to do is we're going to create a mask to separate the sky and the walls, so we can adjust them separately, because what we want to do to the sky is going to be massively different to what we want to do to the walls. So to get our mask, what we do, we grab our little quick selection tool, just drag this in, and you'll see that that manages to select most of the sky fairly well. Don't forget to do these little windows here. I'll just go through and do all of these. And you'll notice that although it's doing a pretty good job, we do have a couple of errors that are popping in, namely these windowsills here. But don't worry too much about them, just make sure that we've got all of this sky selected. Because what we're going to do, there's a few spots. There's one just here, so if we hold down Alt, just go over there, you'll see that we've got rid of that. Head down here, this one was also included accidentally, so just hold down Alt, just to make sure that we remove that selection there. And then there was another one just over here, just tidy that up, make sure that we've only got the sky there in our selection. Have a quick look. It doesn't have to be completely perfect, but the better we get it now, the less work we have to do later. Okay, that looks pretty good. Oops, let's just tidy this up here. Beautiful. So what we'll go and do is we'll hit our Create Mask button down here. So when we do that, we get this group here with a mask on it. Now anything we put into this group will only affect what we've masked out. So if you want to see what that looks like, it's all the bits that are currently highlighted. The red, not affected. So we'll go ahead, we'll drop some levels in here, and we can pull up our black point here, and you'll see that that's darkening up the sky. So we just want to eyeball that a little bit. That looks pretty good. And we'll pull down, we can adjust this here, we can pull that down to make things a bit brighter, but we'll leave that there at 1. You can see already we've managed to bring the Milky Way out a lot more. Now this is more of a visual aid. If you want to do a different method, we need to put this mask here onto a curves layer. So we can do that. Control click on the layer mask, you'll see we've got the marching ants around all of that. Just click curves, and you'll see we've got this big peak right there, and that tells us where all the data is. Now we want to move our black point up a bit, drag that up, and then we want to crush what's left of that. There. Obviously, that's a little bit too dark, so we pull our curves back. Just move these around until we get something that looks pretty nice. That doesn't look too bad at all. So, this one's a little more heavy-handed. Once we're done here, we'll just take the time, clear our entire mask there just by filling that back in. You'll see that although we filled this in and it now affects the entire image, the group mask there is preventing it from affecting our walls. So we'll go ahead and delete that levels. Yes, we want to delete that. Taking a quick look at this, we'll put our mask back on. Obviously, the sky here is a little bit too blue, a little bit too purple. We're going to want to adjust that. So we'll go about color balance layer. Take out our yellows a bit more than that. And it's a little too red, so we'll take that down as well. Without that, you can see now that we've managed to get this sky looking a lot more blue, a lot more what I consider natural. And now we can just keep going on with our curve adjustment, make it a little bit darker, make the bright bits a little bit brighter. But honestly, that's pretty good there. So if you want to see what that looks like, there's our original. Well, we've managed to pull a fair chunk of Milky Way out of that already. Now you may notice it's a bit darker up the top, a bit lighter down the bottom. You can fix that, grab a curves layer, make that a little bit brighter, then take our gradient tool. You want it brighter up in this corner, down to the bottom corner there, just drop that in. Obviously make sure you've got the right gradient selected. And you can see now that we've managed to level this out a little bit more. It's not quite as aggressive as I would like it, so we'll just drag that over to there, boost that a little bit more. That's a little bit better. And now that we've gone and raised the white point, we'll just go and add a little bit more contrast back into it. Not a lot, just a little bit. There we go. So those last two adjustments, just turning those back on and off. See that we've added a little bit more brightness into the part there. Let's turn those down a little bit. They're not quite. That's a bit better. We've done the sky. It looks pretty good. The walls are still pretty green. So what we'll do is we'll do the marching ants. Control click on our mask again, go up to the walls. Now before we go and click our add layer mask button, what we're going to do, head up to select, and we're going to go in and inverse our selection. When we do that, this mask, as you can see, won't affect the sky, will affect the walls. So we'll grab our color balance. We don't want it to be green, we want to take the green out of it a little bit. Okay, maybe a little bit of the red out as well. And yeah, that's actually looking pretty good. We've taken a little bit of that green out, take a little bit more. A little bit more red. There we go, that's looking pretty good now. Now obviously the entire colour thing's fairly subjective. You can muck around with that, try out different settings, see what looks good to you. If we just group all of those together, you can now see that we've gone from, that's not a bad shot, but we've managed to improve that quite a bit. Now of course it's not quite where I will stop. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a technique called star reduction. So we start that off by duplicating our background layer, right there, and what we want to do is we want to zoom in and select a color range. So go up to our select menu, go to color range, and what we want to do is we want to zoom in on one of these stars. That one there will do. Just use our eyedropper, make sure it's a point sample, make sure it's as fuzzy as we can get it. Actually we'll grab a different star. Just keep going until you get something that looks like, a lot of the stars. There we go, that looks pretty good. We've got a lot of stars selected there. When we click OK, what that'll do is that'll select a huge chunk of the nebula, but a lot of our stars. Next step in this is we want to modify this, feather our selection, just a single pixel, that's all we need. Just enough to make it a little bit blurry around the edges. Now in Photoshop there's a filter, it's down under other, it's called minimum. Now what this does is it selects the minimum value from within a certain radius. I use somewhere between 0.5 and 0.7. The bigger the radius, the more aggressive the star reduction. We'll go with 0.7 just to show the biggest effect that we can. And what you'll see this doing, it'll go through, it'll apply this, it'll reduce all of these stars we've now selected. So I'll just deselect that, and you can see, just toggling that layer on and off, that we've managed to massively reduce the number of stars in the image. So this makes the nebula, all of these gas clouds, Milky Way core, all of that much easier to see. What you'll also notice is that we've also applied this effect to the walls. Now, there's no stars on the walls, so in order to deal with this, we just go and drop this right in the bottom of our sky group, and now that will only affect the sky. So you can see the difference there. We've got our lovely nebula, We can all see that quite clearly. We're starting to get close. There's still one more thing that I do, but for this we need to grab all of our layers. So just shift select all of those, duplicate them, and now we want to flatten these out so we can apply everything there. Merge our layers, we've got a single one. Go up and into our camera raw filter again in our filter menu. What we're going to do is we're going to bump our clarity right up. Now this is going to look pretty awful, don't worry about it, just have some faith. What we're now going to do, apply a mask, and just select that entire mask, go down here, fill it all up with black. We don't want this to be seen anywhere. So now what we're going to do, we're going to take our paintbrush, set its flow to 1. We don't need a heavy-handed approach here. This is a pretty heavy technique, so the more subtle we make it, the better. And what we're going to do is we're just going to paint in these areas of cloud right here. Don't need much, just drop it in right where we want the detail. Just about there, a little bit in here. And what we'll see, it doesn't look like we've done much, but toggling that on and off, you can see that we've made these clouds much more visible. So if we want to get a bit heavy-handed, we'll just scribble this in a bit more. The advantage of using a flow 1 is it's very subtle if you just do a single quick pass, but you can really, just by scribbling back and forth, really build it up quite quickly. You can see there, we've built that up quite significantly. So we'll drop that in our group there, just so we can see the huge difference we've done. Now at this point, I'm pretty happy with this image. There's a few other quick adjustments I do. Got an action here that adds a quick vignette right here. Just run that quickly. Drop a vignette over the entire image. Just pare that back. Probably actually fairly heavy-handed. It's not too bad for a vignette on this. It's not too bad at all. Set our color balance. Maybe warm it up a little bit more. If you want to add a little bit of yellow into the highlights, if you do it a bit heavy-handed, you'll see that we get this straight through the nebula, but a nice little soft adjustment there. Goes okay. If we send that actually back the other way, yes, it looks a bit better with the blue in it. So now that we've done all of that, it's a fairly quick edit, 15 minutes or so, and we've managed to take the image, which looks okay. We've managed to capture a fair bit of detail in the Milky Way there, but just a few quick adjustments in Photoshop, we've managed to pull that up quite handily. So we can just drop that straight out, export it as a JPEG, and that's ready to head up onto Facebook, Instagram, whatever your social media platform of choice is. Just remember, let's reduce that down, JPEG, and export that out. And there we go. That's quite quickly how you edit one of these images. Obviously there's a lot more you can do. The image itself's quite noisy. You can go through and do targeted noise reduction on the sky, put a bit more clarity, a bit more boost, a bit of sharpening into these bricks. Obviously they're a little bit fuzzy because we're shooting at f2.8. If you were shooting to print, you'd actually do several exposures and merge them, but that is a tutorial for another time. Thank you all for watching the video. Hopefully you learned something. If you've got any questions, comments, suggestions, anything you'd like to see, you can drop a comment down below. There'll be some links in the description to the raw image here so you can follow along exactly. You don't have to sort of watch and try and translate it across to your own image. If you're interested in learning more shooting techniques, you can join our Facebook group. Link will be in the description. And yeah, hopefully you learned something. So thank you for watching.